You've been doing some work related to hooking computers up to cars to gather diagnostic data. How did you get involved with that?
So last year I wrote a paper, or co-wrote a paper with two authors from the University of Virginia, Devika Pisharati and Dr. Kameen Whitehouse, and we developed a sensor system that is deployed widely for experimental use in monitoring wireless sensors in homes. And while I was working on that, I had the idea that if we can do this really cheaply and really inexpensively with these home sensors, I wonder what data I can get out of my car. And it turns out that there's already a protocol to do that called OBD2, the Onboard Diagnostic 2 protocol. It's been a standard for about 15 to 20 years now. Basically, any car that's been manufactured in this century has OBD2 installed, and that makes it really widely accessible, really easy to use, really easy to get at, and that was really intriguing to me from the standpoint of someone who's interested in data and analyzing it. So that's how I got started.
What is the learning curve for somebody who wants to try to do something similar?
So easy.
Really?
All you have to do is get down on your hands and knees underneath the steering column of your car, look for a trapezoidal port about 1 to 2 inches away from the steering column. It's usually very obvious, and that's your OBD2 port. You can get Bluetooth adapters for this that are available on Amazon or any number of other places for under 30 to 40 bucks, and that's all you need to get started to actually extract data. That'll give you access to the engine's computer that lets you see how fast the engine's going, your speed, RPMs, fuel usage, things like that. And depending on your car's manufacturer, they may expose additional sensors that you can read directly from the bus. You couple that with an app that takes care of all that for you, like Torque is one that's popular for Android. That gives you everything you need without having to really write any code or do anything. You can just start monitoring the data yourself and throwing it into a spreadsheet for further analysis or just storing it for your own use.
How can that data be applied? I'm thinking of something similar to somebody wears a fitness tracker,
sure,
track of that data, go to their doctor and say, hey, I've got this. Mm-hmm. Is something somewhere possible with a mechanic, for example?
Absolutely. So one way that I'm using it personally is I use it to keep track of my business mileage. If you travel a lot for business, right, you know that you want to keep your business trip separate from your personal one. So every time I know that I'm going on a business trip, I just turn on the monitoring for that, and then it tells me exactly how far I went, and it records it for me so I don't have to do anything. So that's one way that you can use the data in a really sort of straightforward, trivial way. But there are many other uses that people might be interested in. So, for example, dash cams have become much more prevalent. Dash cams are also really expensive to install. This would be a really cheap way to monitor if you were braking at the time of an accident or if you were going a speed limit when someone else rear-ended you, that sort of thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's an app ecosystem that's available?
Yes, definitely. So it's small, but it's getting bigger. One of the ones I mentioned is Torque. That's definitely the most popular one. Torque is really good at integrating with the OBD2 diagnostics for a wide range of cars. Another one that's more consumer-level device that's kind of all-in-one is something called Automatic. That's a little white adapter that includes essentially both the app itself and the adapter in one package, so you can monitor it and read the sensor data, but you also get an app packaged with the adapter itself.
This doesn't have any repercussions on warranties or anything like that?
No, not yet. I'm sure there's a lot of manufacturers who would like to make rules about that. In fact, insurance companies already do something similar where they hook into your, if you agree to be monitored by the insurance company, they essentially install a black box into your car that has GPS and also hooks into your OBD2 sensor. So that's what they're using to read the same values off of as Automatic or Torque does. And if you agree to do that, you get a premium reduction, but they're also monitoring you at the same time. Yeah. So for people who are okay with that, you can get both the monitoring and the data in exchange for an insurance premium decrease as well.
How do you see this stuff being applied and being used over the next couple of years?
Well, one of the things I'm talking about in my talk later today is how the right to repair is being threatened. Although the OBD2 port protocol is a standard and is adopted by every major manufacturer of cars, the problem is that only a small part of the protocol is actually specified as a standard, and the rest is manufacturer-specific. And those manufacturer-specific codes are copyrighted in service manuals, and the manufacturers won't let you see the service manuals unless you're a dealer. So the ability of an ordinary person to repair or modify their own vehicle is sort of being shrunk, cannibalized by these copyright laws. And there are a lot of people who think the right to repair is something that we should enshrine in a law or legal precedent that makes sure that regular people, everyday people, should always be able to repair or modify things that they own. Right now, a lot of car manufacturers are effectively saying you don't own your car when you buy it. You are just licensing the software and the technology that's in the car from us, but you may own the wheels and the tires and everything, but what you actually own is an expensive ornament rather than a vehicle that can get you from A to B.
Switching gears a little bit, no pun intended, actually. Really, no pun was intended, but it was there. What is the single biggest technical issue that you're running into right now?
Sure. So I find that a lot of companies and enterprises in particular are struggling with moving to the cloud. A lot of older legacy enterprise technology applications that have been around for a while, banks, medical systems, etc., are being pushed into the cloud for any number of reasons, either because of shifts in IT or because of legal requirements to exchange or share data and so on. And that transition is really difficult for a lot of folks. So I'm always fascinated to see how different companies and cultures manage with that shift, because putting your data out there is it's a big shift from the way things have traditionally been done in some of these enterprises. So it's really interesting to me to see how people are turning their existing technology platforms, stacks, and applications into more cloud-native formats.
How about 5 years ago? What was the single biggest thing you were running into back then?
So I think 5 years ago, we were still coming to grips with whether cloud as a platform was a legitimate idea in terms of not just the commodity hardware that we're running these applications on, but in terms of, is it the right thing to do to migrate all your processes in such a way that all of this stuff is really easily deployable? Is it right to kind of make an end run around the release manager and the product manager and all these different intermediate humans that would have otherwise been responsible for that? And I think we've settled on the answer being yes, it is the benefits far outweigh the costs of doing that. So, I think that wasn't obvious 5 years ago,
right,
but it certainly seems obvious now.
How did that resolve? Was it just a series of things kind of proving themselves over time, or was there some type of key event that happened?
I'm not sure if there is one particular key event, but I think the rise of DevOps as an idea certainly helped that along. The idea that operations and developers should be teaming up to deploy software in a way that makes sense for the business rather than for one or the other group. I think that mind shift was definitely a major focal point of when we switched gears, so to speak, to being more friendly towards cloud. I think before that moment, there was still a lot of question marks, a lot of doubts about whether it was a viable thing to do. And I think that, coupled with better development practices around continuous integration, continuous deployment, the rise of those two things at the same time together has sort of baked themselves into the cloud environment as we know it today.
Last question for you. What people or projects are you following these days?
Sure. So one thing I continue to be interested in is diversity in technology. I think we're not doing a great job. Just today, or just yesterday, I read a story about how Twitter threw a fraternity party in the middle of a gender discrimination lawsuit. And I think until we do a much better job of managing that situation, until we do a much better job of including people from all walks of life into the technology community, we're never going to get the diversity that we really want. So I hope to see us do a better job with that as an industry and on an individual company basis.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Thanks very much.